Hey guys, back with another video, a review on Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I apologize right away because this is going to be a long-ass video. I have a lot to say about this game, it being a huge, massive JRPG. There's a lot to talk about here. So I guess where should I start? The original Xenoblade is a game that I actually have not finished. I've told this story multiple times, but I actually played that game like the European version. I imported it because I didn't think it would actually come out in North America. And I got about 28 hours into it, and my save data got corrupted somehow. So yeah, I didn't actually end up ever going back to it because 28 hours is a lot of progress that I lost. And Xenoblade's one of those games that a lot of people love. A lot of people consider it like one of the greatest JRPGs of all time. And I really enjoyed it from what I played of it, but obviously I haven't finished it, so I can't really say if I would love the whole thing. I've heard some people sour on it a bit towards the end, but it's one of those games that people just love. So there was obviously a lot of excitement for this game, Xenoblade Chronicles X, and enjoying Xenoblade and the fact that this game doesn't really have any. It has very slight connections to that game, but you can play this without having played Xenoblade, and so I did, and you know what? I enjoyed my time with this game. I love this game, in fact. This is one of my favorite games of 2015. I think this game is phenomenal. That said, I think some people are going to be disappointed with this game. I think it's not going to gel with some people. Especially if you're one of those people that enjoyed Xenoblade for the story. Xenoblade had the big open world, but it still had like a big focus on the story and the characters. And this game does not. This game does not focus on the story near as much as Xenoblade. Obviously, there is a story here, but it's actually fairly simple. It's not the most complex plot ever, which is kind of surprising considering like the Xeno series overall. The Xenosaga series is like crazy, and of course Xenogears is absolutely crazy. But yeah, the story here is not only quite simple. This is talking about the gameplay a little, but you're constantly gated in almost like an MMO kind of way. The progression in this game is quite strange. So you're not going to be able to actually just rush through the story and get the game done. If you're the type of player that likes to actually just rush through games and not do a whole lot of side quests, this game is going to frustrate you a lot. You are going to have to grind at certain points, and to do a certain story mission, you might have to get like 5 levels. And there's a few points in the game where you're either going to have to grind a few levels, or you're going to have to survey quite a bit of the world before you can actually progress through the story. So yeah, not as story-driven. This is more focused on exploration, gameplay, and customization. And for that, I really enjoyed it. Not to say the story's bad. I actually think the story is decent. It's all right. It's got some problems, especially towards the end, where it kind of ends off in sort of a cliffhanger and leaves you with more questions than answers, really, unfortunately. And then there's just the fact that the story is not that simple, and most of the characters aren't too compelling, although a lot of them, in order to get the character development, you have to do affinity missions, and we'll talk about those later. But there's a whole lot of characters, but there's only basically 3 lead characters, and of course, I should say, your main character is kind of a mute character, and you do like these simple. You have like simple choices, dialogue choices, and that creates a kind of a disconnect with a lot of like the cutscenes that is quite awkward. But again, they're going for like this almost like this single player MMO feel, so that's I think why they went with the mute main character. But the story for Xenoblade Chronicles X. Earth is basically destroyed. It's in the far future. Earth is destroyed, and most of humanity. Well, not most of humanity. In fact, most of humanity got wiped out. But there's like these Ark ships that were able to leave Earth with some people on them, and basically the Earth is destroyed through like this kind of war between 2 alien species, and basically. You play as a character. Basically, one of these ships, the White Whale, it's called, crashes on the planet Mira, and a character named Elma wakes you up from like a stasis chamber on Mira, and the whole story basically it's kind of like a basic alien invasion story, but you're trying to find the lifehold of this ship when you're on this planet Mira. Why you're looking for the lifehold, I don't want to actually spoil, but there's kind of a twist there. And you've got an alien race called the Ganglions that are kind of trying to wipe out humanity for good. So you've got that kind of thing going on too. It's the story definitely takes a back seat in this game, at least up until the end where it gets a bit crazy. There's plenty of twists toward the end, some of which are actually quite interesting. But like I said before, the ending is sort of disappointing too because there's a lot. It leaves a lot of questions. It almost like. Almost like they want to do a sequel to this game, and maybe they will. But yeah, the story it's okay. And I think this is going to disappoint a lot of people. Between the fact that it's not all that complex and there's not much of a focus on it, I don't think a lot of people are going to like the story here as much as the story in Xenoblade, which I hear is good. Most people seem to like the story in the original Xenoblade, but yeah, you also, like I said before, you're constantly gated in this game. Story missions, you can't just do story mission 1 and then 2 and then 3. You have prerequisites for each story mission. You might have to even do some affinity missions and grind up affinity, and we'll talk about that in the gameplay, which I guess will lead into the gameplay. It's an open world, a gorgeous, beautiful open world. Mira is just breathtaking. It's divided into 4 main sections, and each has a completely different look to it and a completely different feel. It really feels like this alien world, and it's probably one of the most varied and interesting open worlds of the year. And 2015's been a pretty big year for open world games. We've gotten a ton of them, but I feel like exploration is like the most rewarding in this game out of all the games I've played this year. That mainly has to do with like the customization that you're given. Now, I guess we'll talk about like basically you can take on a bunch of different side quests. There's countless side quests that you can do. A lot of them are quite interesting too. Actually, the story was okay, but actually some of the side quests are pretty interesting and goes to some weird places. While some of them are very boring. And then you've got your typical fetch quests, and killing quests and. Like I'm kind of like half and half. I think half of the quests in this game are quite good, but some of them are really terrible. The gathering quests in particular, I think, are awful. Where you have to go to a certain part, a certain segment of the map, like one of the big regions, and you have to find like 6 of one item, 5 of another, and 4 of another. And the game doesn't tell you at all where these items are, because there's like a bunch of items you can pick up all across the world. And you're basically left to your own devices. You basically have to go on the internet to find out where a lot of these things are. It's very frustrating because a lot of missions, they have these guide markers that will tell you exactly where you need to go. Like, for instance, the hunting quest. If you need to hunt 4 of a certain monster, it's going to tell you exactly where that monster is, the guide marker. And why they don't have that for the gathering missions, I have no idea. But it's tedious. It's a pain in the ass. Anytime I would see gathering missions on the mission board, I would just flat out not do them because they just fucking suck. The hunting quests are fun, but you see these kind of quests in a bunch of games. And then you have other quests that you can take from NPCs in the main town, New Los Angeles. And those are the quests that are more interesting, although there are some boring ones, and there's a ton of them. I didn't actually do all of them. But you also have the affinity quests, and these were in Xenoblade, if I can remember correct. I don't remember exactly how they worked in that game, but I actually hate these quests. I can't stand how they're handled, where these are the quests that give a lot of character development to the characters. Each character you find will have affinity quests, and there's a bunch of characters you can recruit. You have a 4-person party. Elma and Lynn are kind of like 2 main characters of the game, and you're basically encouraged to use them constantly because pretty much every story mission requires that you use them. So the 4th party member is always going to be a random character that you can find. And these characters, their character development is only given through well, not only some is given some character development is given through the main missions, but most of it is given through these affinity missions, where these affinity missions are fully voiced and they're quite involved, but you have to have a certain affinity level to take them on. So, say you have a character named Doug, for instance. You find this character Doug, and to get more of his backstory and character development, you'll have to do an affinity mission for him. But it might require two hearts of like this affinity meter, where you can get up to 5 hearts. And to do that, to increase the affinity meter, you have to do a bunch of quests. And affinity grows very, very slowly. Just to get 1 heart takes like forever. It takes a ridiculous amount of side missions. And I'll tell you right now, actually, I'll save some people some trouble here that are playing this game. To do the main quest, to do some missions in the main story, you have to get Gwyn and Lau's affinity to 1 heart. So make sure you do that before you get too far into the story, or else you're going to have to grind out affinity like crazy, and doing these side missions over and over and over again. It's not fun. It's tedious, and it's a shame that they lock a lot of this interesting content behind this like irritating part of the game. Like, the affinity missions just drive me nuts. How they would have fixed this, I honestly just make affinity grow like much quicker. I really think they should have. Some of the quests I was seeing, the affinity quests, I did a lot of them because getting to 1 heart is tolerable, but there's some affinity quests I saw that like required 3, 4, 5 hearts, and I was just like, well, fuck that, I'm not doing that. So yeah, that's a very disappointing part of the game. Let's talk about the battle system. It's turn-based, real-time, similar to the original Xenoblade. It's very similar. It reminds me of a lot of MMOs, like World of Warcraft, for instance, where you have a hotbar of skills that you can use, and your characters kind of auto-attack the enemies you find on the maps. No battle transitions or anything like that. You target your enemies, and your abilities have cooldowns that you kind of have to take into account. And once they're up, you can use your abilities. You have a kind of a soul voice system too here, where your party members will call out if they need like a melee attack or a ranged attack. And if you happen to have a melee attack that you're able to use, it will kind of be highlighted and flashing. And if you use that ability, you'll heal some health. And you can actually kind of customize your soul voices. And these are kind of like commands where if certain commands or your party members say a certain line, you can kind of customize certain abilities corresponding to that. And I actually didn't mess with those too much. It's like this whole mechanic in this game that I didn't mess with. You don't need to actually mess with that to beat the game, but that's like a whole other level of customization that's there. And like, there's a lot of mechanics here. I'm gonna get really in depth here because, like I said, a long review, and there's there's so many different interesting mechanics in this game that kind of all work together quite nicely. But yeah, the battle system, it's fun. I think it's quite engaging, and it feels more active, I feel, compared to Xenoblade. Xenoblade had the Monado, where you could kind of like see enemy turns advance, or if an enemy was going to do like a crazy attack that was going to kill your party, you could kind of like prepare for that. That whole system's been removed. Like, that's not in this game at all. But I don't know. I feel like it feels and flows better than it did in the original Xenoblade. It has been a while since I played that, but it's a fun battle system. That said, if you're not into MMOs all that much, or you prefer a traditional turn-based or a traditional action-based kind of hack and slash system, it might be a little jarring and disappointing. It can get a little repetitive at times, I will say, but I gotta say I was always kind of engaged with it. It's, there's quite a lot of strategy too. You have a bunch of different skills that you can acquire. Your characters level up, and you'll gain new skills, and you can level up those skills when you'll earn experience and then battle points from battles, and then you'll earn battle points elsewhere where you can level up all your skills. So that's cool. You've got a skill system as well. Each character has multiple skills they can equip. and those skills can be leveled up as well. They're kind of like passive abilities, basically. There's also a class system in this game, and this was not in Xenoblade, and this is actually one of my favorite parts of the game, at least with the gameplay. The class system is really cool, where you'll start as a drifter class, which is just your basic class. That has, like, I think just sword and assault rifle. And once you get that class up to level 10, you have 3 other classes you can choose. And depending on the class you choose, they'll have different weapon types and different abilities, completely different abilities. And you can change your class at any time, and that class will still be leveled up. So there's a lot of freedom there with what class you want to pick, what skills are more interesting to you. There's classes that are better as, like, your kind of ranged attack classes. There's your more melee focused classes, and then there's like a kind of good balance. There's some classes based more on healing. So I just love that system. I thought that was really cool. Personally, I went with kind of, like, there's actual, like, character builds in this game, which is kind of rare for JRPGs. And again, very MMO-ish, but really cool. I went with kind of like a balanced character. I think it was called, like, the Galactic Knight character. That was the last class. But yeah, a really, really satisfying system. So that's like your on-foot combat. And you also have Skell combat, which this is a huge part of the game where you get you get mechs. They're called Skells in this game. Now, you don't get the Skells until you're, like, level 30 at least. It's around, like, the 30-hour mark before you get Skells. And now there's been some complaints about this, but I am actually fine with that, because it's really rewarding and satisfying when you finally do get your Skell. Unfortunately, you do have to go through, like, this long Skell exam before you can get it, and a part of that is a really tedious gathering quest. So that's a little bit of a complaint. But once you get your Skell, it's smooth sailing, and it's fun because the battle system kind of changes a little bit. The Skell they give you, though, right off the bat is really shitty. You're going to want to invest in a better Skell right away, because yeah, it's not great. Now, Skells have fuel that you have to take into account, which is kind of interesting, but basically, the combat is kind of the same. It's still like that turn-based active thing, but you can fly around. You can find like a flight module you can get for your Skells, so you can fly around the environments. It really changes the way exploration works, and it changes, like, the scale of the game too, because you can get out of your Skell, and it's massive compared to your character. It's really cool. I love the Skells, and the customization with the Skells is crazy. We'll talk about that, but the battle system basically is the same kind of thing where you have your skills, but they're not based on your leveling up anymore. Basically, they're dependent on the weapons you equip on your Skell, actually, and there's all kinds of different weapons you can equip on your Skells. A bunch of different armor you can equip on your Skells. And on your character too, and depending on what you equip, your character looks different. I love that. I love that in RPGs, when characters will look different depending on what armor you give them and what weapons you get. Again, a very MMO type thing, but I really appreciated it here. So your arts for your Skells are dependent on weapons, and so that's kind of interesting. I guess it's weird because Skell combat is more simplified compared to the on-foot stuff. The on-foot stuff is actually more complex and more difficult overall. The Skells make the game easier in the sense that if you have, like, crazy weapons for your Skells, for instance, I got, like, one of the most expensive Skells you can get, at least from the level 30 ones, and it has a scythe, and the art that corresponds with that scythe is really powerful. Like, it does an insane amount of damage, basically allowing you to take on enemies like 10 levels over your level. And that I actually appreciate in this game. Oftentimes you will be able to actually kill enemies that are quite stronger than you. So I thought that was a nice touch and really cool. But customization is one of my favorite parts of this game. There's just so many cool armors that you can find. The Skells are really cool. Like, I guess I should talk about too. We'll move on to some of the other things with gameplay and mechanics. You've got a probe system in this game where you basically throughout the open world you find, like, these probe points where you can kind of, like, set a data probe, and basically it kind of there's different probes you can find. You can find, like, mining probes, research probes, duplicator probes, and they get you resources and revenue. depending on how you have them set up. And you have to kind of chain probes together. So if you have like 3 research probes, like research probes level 2 research probes, and you chain them together, you'll get a 30% bonus to your revenue. And each probe spot has their different qualities. So it might have like an A ranking for revenue and a C ranking for your mining. So you'll get more money there, but if you put a mining probe there, you're not going to get a whole lot. And this is actually a really important part of the game. I can see some people not caring about this too much. You're going to want to go around putting probes because you're going to unlock fast travel points the more you explore these environments, and getting probes gets you money and resources. And the main mining resource is called Moranium, and with Moranium you can get fuel for your Skells, which is quite important, and then you can upgrade shops to get new weapons and armor, which again very useful. But I found money to be far more useful in this game, to the point where you need a lot of money in the late game because you're going to need the best Skells to get you through the end of the game. Because this game, the difficulty is all over the place, really. Because I'll talk about the progression later. The progression in this game is a little fucked, and experience payouts I think are way too small. Like, quests just do not give you much experience, so leveling up is kind of a slow process. But later in the game, enemies are going to be really strong, and you're going to need some really high-powered Skells, and you're going to need to get a Skell for each of your main party members. So you're going to need a lot of money, and to get a lot of money, you have to have your probe set up properly. So I'd recommend don't really pay attention to probes. Use your duplicator probes properly, and then your booster probes. A good thing I did was in the Oblivia region, in the top right, like the eastern part of Oblivia. There's like a certain part where you can place a duplicator probe, and then like a resource probes around it, and basically these spots have sightseeing spots, where if you find these sightseeing spots, that adds a lot to your revenue on that probe's location. So you need your flight module on your Skell to get the sightseeing spots, but I would highly recommend doing this because it increases your revenue by like an insane amount. I was earning, at this point in the game when I got my flight module for my Skell, I was earning at least 150k per hour. You get per hour, I think it feels like it's per hour. It might be per 30 minutes, but you'll get revenue and Moranium. So yeah, I was just completely rolling with cash at this point. But I felt like I really needed it because you need to equip your Skells with amazing weapons, and Skells are expensive. They're going to cost a lot of gold, or I think it's called gold. I'm not sure what actually the money, the revenue is in this, but yeah, I definitely look online for some like probe guides or whatever, because that whole system, you really have to pay attention to that and learn it to the best of your ability, and keep finding probes. So you kind of find like different you'll find like salvage points in the map, and you'll gain experience and probes from these points, and you'll level up in a few different areas. There's mechanical, biological, and archaeological. I can't say that word for whatever reason, but you start at level 1 for each of these kind of skills, I guess, gathering skills, I guess I'll call them. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you're playing this game, go for mechanical right away, because that allows you to put more probes down. Because you might find probe locations that require a level 2 mechanical skill. And if you're level 1 and you're finding all these probe locations and you can't put new probes down because you're only level 1, that sucks. Biological and the other ones are just they're useful, but not right away. You really want to focus on mechanical. Unfortunately, getting to level 5 is like near impossible because you have to do a certain quest associated with it, and they're gathering quests, and they give you like these really cryptic clues to like kill a certain boss or find a certain item. And I looked online how to do this, and I was just like, fuck that. That is the most irritating thing. I hate how they lock that behind, but yeah. As you can tell, I really enjoy this game, but it's got some issues. It's got some major problems. I guess we'll talk about progression in this game. It's one of my big beefs with this game, where there'll be times where in order to do a new story mission, you have to be level, I think this one was really annoying, where you had to be level 30 to take on like mission 5 or 6 or whatever. I was level 25 at this point, and this is like doing a healthy amount of side quests and doing the main quests. I was just not getting enough experience to level up. It's just impossible. The way progression works in this game, you're not going to be the level required unless you do like every single side quest you possibly can, and are exploring like everything to the best of your ability. Like 95% of players, when they reach this mission, they're not going to be level 30. So yeah, I had to grind on enemies from like level 26 or 7 all the way up to 30 in order to progress the story, and that sucks. I really wanted to see what the story was like, and I kind of wanted to, progress through the game, but it's the game just doesn't let you. Of course, because you got to be a certain level, and then once you do start that mission, the enemies are insanely difficult. Like the boss is crazy hard. And what happens in this game, if you die 3 times, you can lower the difficulty, and the boss that you're stuck on will be like lowered a few levels. I had to actually use this quite often throughout the game because it's just the balance. What I'm getting at basically is that the balance is pretty fucked in this game. Like sometimes the enemies will just be like way stronger than you at the story mission you're at. Sometimes they'll be weaker, and then you have like these prerequisites like surveying a certain area. Like to get to access one story mission, you have to explore like 20% of a certain region. So if you haven't done that, yeah, you got to grind. And the game is grindy. It's a grindy game. And the best way to get experience is actually to grind, to just kill enemies over and over again. Actually, questing does not give you a whole lot of experience. It's often more beneficial to just keep killing killing enemies over and over again that are a few levels higher than you. That sucks because it makes it so that I don't really want to do all the quests, and some of those are kind of interesting. And the quest rewards are never all that great either. It's usually armor that's like never as good as the armor that I have equipped on my characters. So yeah, that's a disappointing aspect of the game, and constantly being gated is something that I think is going to turn a lot of players off. I think some people are actually just going to give up on the game completely because of this, and that's a bit unfortunate. So yeah, it's the progression overall is definitely a little fucked. I do also want to talk about this. There's the final section of this game, chapter 12. There's 12 chapters in all. I'm not going to spoil things, obviously, but it sucks. The final chapter in this game is fucking terrible. Really poor design, where it's basically this huge, long, multi-part battle where you can't leave in the middle of it. There are multiple cutscenes, multiple fights, and you can't leave. And basically, I guess I didn't really mention this, but if your mech is destroyed, if your Skell is destroyed, you have to use a salvage ticket to get it back. You start with 3, and once you use up all 3, you have to pay money to resurrect your Skell, and it's very expensive. And also, actually, when your Skell dies, if you do a quick time event, press B at the right time, you won't have to pay the money. And that's another part of the battle system I didn't mention. You have like that little quick time event that comes in that you can get healed basically. And there's actually no way to use items or heal in battle. You actually have to use your skills and use the soul voice system to properly heal. Yeah, your Skells will get destroyed, and in this final section of the game, basically, in order to resurrect your Skell, you got to go back to the barracks in the main city and use your salvage ticket there. But in this final section, you can't do that. You can't leave. You're stuck there. So I went to the section. My mech got destroyed because it's really difficult. Like this whole section of the game is very difficult, and I had the best mechs, like the best mechs you could get with the best armor, the best weapons, and it was still too much for me. So my mech gets destroyed. My party gets wiped out, and I'm like, okay. So then you have to resort to on foot combat, and it's literally impossible. Now I'm serious, absolutely impossible. So what I have to do? Quit the game. Go back to the main menu, and then you have to go through all these cutscenes, all these fights all over again, just to have your mech destroyed yet again. It is just awful. I don't know why they don't allow you to just leave whenever you want during this section. It's a pain in the fucking ass, but I was able to cheese it a bit, and this will lead into the online portion of this game. Um, yeah, there's a whole online portion. It's not great. It's pretty minor. Where basically you kind of join like a division in the beginning, and you're kind of working towards goals within your division. Where like there's a bunch of different division, like a gatherer division, interloper division. I think that's what I went with. Where you get division points if you kill a bunch of enemies. Where a gathering division job will gain a bunch of points if you gather a bunch of shit. And you can use these division points to get rewards and things like that, and other players are getting division points as well all across the world. And you kind of have like Miiverse messages popping up from other players while you're playing, and you can actually scout players online. You can scout NPCs as well, but you can basically take other people's characters and they can join your party for a limited time. And you have to pay money to do this, but that's kind of like the online portion. You can do missions with other people, but that's all you can do. You can't like invite someone into your game to help you with like a story boss, for instance. You can only do specific missions designed for co-op, where you might get some rewards that way, some experience, some weapons, some armor. I didn't mess with that too much. It's again, like I said, there's not a whole lot of online integration here. It's very, it doesn't amount to much, but the scouting is actually really it's overpowered basically because you can scout characters that are way higher level than you. So I was level 43, 44 at this final section, this final group of bosses, and what I did was I scouted a level 60 from someone, and it costs like I think 60,000. For like 120 minutes, I think, to use this level 60 character. And this level 60 character just demolished these bosses. Like, absolutely wrecked them. Meanwhile, my character and the other two main characters were just getting destroyed. We were just absolutely getting killed. So that made things really easy, like too easy, where if you scout 3 characters, 3 level 60s, you're going to have no problems whatsoever with this game. So that's a problem, right? And I would say you could just, how to fix this, basically make it so that you can only scout characters that are your level. But it would have been impossible otherwise. I wouldn't have been able to do it. The only way I would have been able to do it is to grind a bunch, to probably grind to like level 50, to get some of the, like the level 50 skells, which apparently are pretty overpowered, but cost a lot too. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's a little cheap to get all these, like to scout these level 60 soldiers, but I probably would have just given up and watched the ending on YouTube if it weren't for that. So yeah, this whole final section of the game is really terrible. Definitely prepare for that. You're gonna want to prepare for that, and it's rough. I hated it. So yeah. Geez, I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, I think I've about covered the entire game. I mean, there's probably some mechanics and systems I haven't thought of, but. Yeah, like the exploration's really rewarding. I guess I should say the gamepad is really useful in this game. You're going to want to use the gamepad here. In fact, it's almost pretty much required because you have like a grid system where it shows like the map on your gamepad, and you can just tap to different parts of this grid to kind of fast travel. And all the information there is on the gamepad, like in terms of like the main city, like where like quest givers are and things like that. It's very handy. Like the gamepad is an absolute necessity. So yeah, actually some of the best uses of the Wii U gamepad I've seen. Some really good stuff. The exploration, like I was saying, like really, really rewarding. There's like the big city that you find. There's one main city. It's absolutely huge. Like all these different districts and characters walking around, cars driving around. It's really crazy. Like the sense of scale in this game is phenomenal, and the environments are just gorgeous to look at and have like a verticality to them that I find a lot of open worlds just don't have. And a lot of times there's a lot of quests where you're going to have to get to a certain part of the map, and you're going to kind of be confused how to get there exactly. And you can jump, of course, and you can do these crazy maneuvers, and so you got to kind of figure out how you're going to get there. and that kind of thing you don't see too often in open worlds. And I think some people could be kind of annoyed by that, but I thought it was kind of interesting and exciting. But yeah, it's a very addictive game too. I was addicted to this game. I finished it pretty fast. It took me 55 hours, I think, to get through it, and there's a post game. A lot of side content to still tackle. So it's the kind of game, if you wanted 100%, it would take like thousands of hours. I'm pretty sure, fully exploring all these maps. But visuals. Let's talk about the visuals. Gorgeous. This game is beautiful. The best looking game on Wii U, hands down. It almost makes me wish this game was on another console, because it would have looked absolutely amazing. But these environments just look amazing. Like, the character models look really good. The faces are a little weird. And I found it kind of interesting, like, to create a character in the beginning, you could only have anime hairstyles. That was kind of weird. But the Skells look amazing. Like, there's some really cool Skell designs. Like, all the different armors in this game just look really cool. Like I was saying before, the sense of scale here is just immense. It's crazy. But a smooth, solid frame rate. I don't think it's 60 frames per second. I'm pretty sure it's 30, but a very rare frame rate drops. It just runs really well. The loading times are a little rough, and you can download like this data pack that reduces load times. But that leads me to a complaint about the Wii U. Like, like, I couldn't download all the data packs. I could only download the basic one, because it was so many, like, it was way too big. Like, the Wii U is only 32 gigabytes, so I couldn't download all the files, which is, like, really annoying. But the load times are not bad if you get that data pack. But yeah, a gorgeous game. I can't honestly, kind of blown away by how impressive the visuals are, considering it's on a very underpowered system. Monolith Soft really got the most out of the Wii U with this game. It looks fantastic. Audio-wise, voice acting is really good, actually. Voice acting's top-notch. The lip syncing is a little off, but the voice acting overall is quite solid. Music. Okay, the music's going to be very divisive. Now, the original Xenoblade Chronicles had an incredible soundtrack. I didn't listen to the whole thing, but what I did hear when playing that game was absolutely incredible, and a lot of people loved the soundtrack for that game. The soundtrack in this game is very different. It's a whole different style. It's very anime, I guess. Is how I would describe it. A lot of songs with vocals here. Some rapped, some have rapped vocals, some have female vocals, some have male vocals. Most actually are very cheesy. Some are like jazzy and kind of upbeat a little. You have some more traditional, like, JRPG themes, like the kind of music you'd hear in Xenoblade, especially when you're exploring the different regions. Some really, like, sweeping, epic music there that's really quite good. But then you have all the music that plays when you're exploring the main city, New Los Angeles, and this is some really goofy music. I mean, I don't know if it fits or not. It's so bizarre. Like, the soundtrack in this game is fucking weird, man. It is a weird-ass soundtrack. But I can't, like, I gotta say, a lot of music gets stuck in your head. Because the same songs will play over and over again in this main city, and you'll be in this main city quite often. So, yeah, it's a mixed bag, this soundtrack. I like some of the songs, and then some of the songs are enjoyably cheesy, and then some are just plain bad. And another thing with the music, it's way too fucking loud, and it actually plays during every single cutscene. And a lot of times it completely goes over the voice acting. Like, you can't even hear the characters. The music is just blaring, and you can't adjust anything. You can't adjust any audio levels. That is insane to me, that a game exists that you can't adjust audio levels. I can't think of any other game that you can't. It actually kind of is weird, like, that the developers didn't like, through testing, didn't like, well, hey, yeah, the music's kind of loud. We should probably change this. But very, very baffling. I don't know, but in the end, it's kind of a minor complaint. But yeah, the soundtrack, some people I think are going to hate it. I'm kind of mixed on it. It's okay, I think, overall. But some people might love some people might find it gloriously cheesy. But yeah, definitely a departure from the original Xenoblade. In fact, this game overall is a departure from the original Xenoblade. I think that's going to put some people off. But yeah, yeah, that's about covers the audio. Yeah, but yeah, unlike a lot of it's a weird game. It's unlike a lot of other games in the Xeno series. It's very MMO-ish, like a single player MMO, and that's I think going to turn some people off. You know, I really enjoyed my time with it. You know what it offers, I really enjoyed. Like again, like I said before, I'm a gameplay guy. I put gameplay over story. I'm like 60% gameplay, 40% story, and this game has incredible gameplay, some great mechanics. But some really frustrating aspects to the game too. And I should say this game doesn't tell you shit in the beginning. Like it gives you like these very brief tutorials. You're gonna have to go through the manual. I know a lot of people have said they've done that. I didn't do it too much, but yeah, experiment. Go through the menus. Really figure things out for yourself. Like the game will tell you things way after you figured them out. Like the class system, for instance. Like I was figuring out that you would have to get this first class to level 10 before you could get a new class, and this game doesn't even tell you that until like like ways away into the game. It's kind of weird. Like the game really doesn't explain itself that well to you, but that's kind of a minor complaint. That's something that's never really bothered me in games. But again, some people might find that a bit much, but. Yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles X. Yeah, 40 minutes. We've been talking about this game for 40 minutes. What can I say? It's a huge game. It's crazy. So many mechanics, so many systems, a massive, huge world to explore. But I really enjoyed my time with it. You know, well, I might come back to it in the future. I could see myself coming back to it in the future, doing a few missions, getting up some more gold, buying some of the more high-level Skells, doing some of the more difficult quests. Of course, there's crazy difficult monsters you'll find in this world. Like there's a bunch of monsters that are like level 92 or whatever, and you're just like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to take on that. The aggro ranges can be a little annoying in this game. It's got that MMO thing where sometimes you're exploring, and then like enemy might be on patrol that's like 50 levels higher than you, and then in the middle of a fight it will find you and then just completely wipe your party. That can happen a lot in this game, and that can be frustrating, but. Yeah, I enjoy this game, but there's a lot of things that really bug me about it, and your mileage may vary. I think some of the things that bother me in this game a little will bother some people a lot. This game is going to appeal to a certain type of player, and I think people that love previous Xeno games for like their really complex stories, tackling all these different kind of interesting themes, might be disappointed here, but. Yeah, definitely one of my favorite games of the year. I'm glad I played it. Definitely one of the best Wii U games for sure. But that's it, guys. I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.